cuties, I'm Brittany with Stitches of Love Quilting, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how simple it is to do the little piecing parts using the perfect point piecing paper in your everyday Angels block of the month. So this couldn't be easier. We give you 2 sheets of the paper piecing and you simply trim them. I do want to give you a little tip. I use a ruler and I trim about 1/4 of an inch all the way around my outer line just to make all of my pieces uniform. You can just go willy-nilly and trim them apart, but I like it to be kind of tidy. So the first thing I'm going to do, of course, I've cut all of my fabric, and I do want to tell you, I like to starch my fabric. I think it makes it a lot easier to work with, and I think when I then begin piecing the rest of the block, it comes together in a more accurate way. So go to town with that starch. And I don't use any kind of fancy starch. You can use your favorite. I personally use just like the old school bottle of spray starch. I don't have one right beside me that, you would use when you were, ironing your clothes. That's what I use. So you have your piece of paper, you have your fabric that is the background, and then I've gotten 2 of the pieces that are the colors. So I'm going to make this little piece right here. So I'm going to orient my paper piecing the proper way. And I'm going to say, okay, what goes in the space of number 2 is this funny little teal print. What goes in the space of number 3 is my funny little green print. So I'm going to orient each little section of the flying geese so I make mine look just like the pattern. So you have the picture on the front of your pattern. You also in your insert have another close-up picture so you can see it really well there as well. So what you do is you take your piece of paper and you turn it upside down. You're going to take your sew line glue pen, and just in that middle triangle, piece number 1, put some glue. Just like so, and then put your fabric, the background fabric, face down, and I just simply center this. So you only want glue underneath the area of the triangle of number 1. So again, I'm going to orient it the way it's going to go in my block. So I know that the first line I'm going to sew is between 1 and 2. So I'm going to take this fabric and it's going to go where my number 2 is. So I know that that is right here. I'm going to turn it over, and what I'm going to do is put my fabric right sides together, okay? So you can see that. How I like to line that fabric up underneath is I just take a look at where that corner is, and I want to go just a little bit past this trim line underneath. What's going to happen is we're going to sew on this line between 1 and 2, and then this is going to flip over, okay? So let's go to our machine and sew that line. And ta-da, with the magic of camera, I've done just that, obviously on another section of the block. So I have sewn between 1 and 2. You can see I did an orange line. I would piece with a white or an ecru or a cream, your favorite color that you use when you're piecing a quilt. I'm using orange so you can see it. So I have my line between 1 and 2. What I'm going to do is flip this over. I'm going to pull this back, and I'm just going to check it. Does it go past my trim line? Yes, it does. That's awesome. So we can trim, right? To trim, let me give myself a little cutting board. When you're ready to trim, you don't have anything folded, right? This is totally flat. You are going to take it where your paper side up. You're going to pull this back. It folds right along that sewn line. And then we're going to take our magic add a quarter ruler. This is magic. What I love is this little ledge. This gives you the perfect 1/4 inch. You don't have to think, measure anything. It just butts right up to that fold. And take your cutter. Boop. There you go. You can save these and make something else. You could do like little piecing. You could make a really cute project bag maybe with your extra fabric, or you can just toss it. That's fine too. So now that that is trimmed, I'm going to take my roller and I do 1 roll, kind of like you would with an iron set your seam. I do that. I don't know if you have to. I like to do it. And then I'm going to just finger press right here, and then I'm going to roll, right? So now the next step that we will do, we need the other side of our flying geese. So we'll take our little pink fabric. And so again, we're going to put fabric to fabric, right sides together. And I like to line it up where this corner that I'm going to trim is right at the corner of this. That's giving me the most fabric possible to fold back over. So you can see I'm just right at the trim line over here. And I know when I sew that line and pull this back, I'm going to have plenty of fabric. So where we're going to sew next, now that we have that in place, would be the line between the 2 and the 3. I do want to tell you, I forgot to mention a second ago, go extra stitches at the beginning and the end. Just do a little back stitch. So go forward I do about 4 stitches usually, and then I continue the line, and I do at the end, I go back another 4 stitches. So I like to secure that. You'll read in the pattern that you're going to use a much smaller stitch than you normally would, say, piecing. And that's because when you go to tear out the paper, it just keeps your stitch super secure. That's why you're doing that. You don't want your paper tearing out to rip any of your stitches, which you don't. That would make you sad. I will tell you, if you make a boo-boo with this really small stitch and you have to get your seam ripper out, it is not as much fun, but that's fine. Watch this tutorial. Hopefully you don't have to do the seam ripping. So with the magic of camera, let me show you what it looks like with that sewn. So now this block is sewn between the line of the 1 and the 3 right here. So it is time to check ourselves. I always check before I cut, no matter how many I've made of the same piece. I check every single time because I would rather unstitch versus have to start the whole block over, right? So I'm going to take my finger, pull this back, take a little gander, and totally I'm going past my trim line. I just feel with my fingers. And so it's time to trim. So I'm going to make sure that's flat. You don't want to trim with it folded because you'll cut your piece, right? So you want it flat. And you are going to do just like we did on the other line. Just simply take your paper back, put your magic little, you can see we have a trim line over here, right? From where we trimmed before. Now, just put your add a quarter right in place, trim this away, and now we will finger press it back and give it a little roll. I love these little seam rollers. I also always have like a little bitty iron beside myself at my sewing station. But when you can see how flat this is laying, can you see that good on the camera? It's laying really nice and flat. And I attribute that to my starching. So if I hadn't starched, I would feel like it's wiggling a little bit. But starching, I don't know, just kind of like glues the fabric together. You know what I mean? And so it's staying nice and flat. So you would be fine to go on and trim now without actually using a real iron at this place because you have no wrinkles. Everything's laying flat. So now you've created your flying geese. All you have to do is trim. So you're going to trim on this outer line. The inner line represents where your seam is going to be sewn. So you can leave your papers on until you, oh, I didn't bring a real ruler in here. You guys, how did I do that? Okay, well, we're going to trim with this ruler. I don't recommend that. How do I not have a ruler right here? That's crazy. That's really wild. So I recommend using a ruler that's actually a ruler so that you can measure and make sure that it's the exact size that you need from your pattern. How is it when I'm filming? I do all this planning and get all the way here. I'm always missing one thing. Like today, a ruler. How crazy is that? But if you're using a real ruler with all the lines, this is just for trimming your seam allowance, you would line it up against the lines and make sure you really are cutting the exact size called for in the pattern. However, it is printed accurately, so you're fine either way, but I still always like to trim with checking myself and making sure I stay perfectly square. So when it comes to actually piecing your block together, you can leave this paper on and go on and attach the other pieces in the block and then pull it out. And one benefit of doing that is that you continue to have a perfect seam line, right? So that choice is yours. You can go on and pull the paper totally out now after you trim it, or you can piece together with it. Let me show you what a perfect block we get. So this is what it looks like on the back. It's just 2 seams to make this flying geese. And then on the front, it is absolutely perfect. And when you take into account your seam allowance, you're going to end up with absolutely perfect points. So it's easy as can be. And I do want to mention you have a couple extra pieces of paper every month. So if you ever need to practice or set the project aside and want to practice again, just grab some scraps and cut it to the size that says in the pattern. And you can use the extra papers that you get in your kit, or you can just use it for something else, another fun project. So I hope that this was a helpful, quick tutorial for you. If you have any questions at all, never hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to help. And I hope you have so much fun doing the hand embroidery portion of this quilt and that you have so much fun putting it all together. It's just beautiful fabrics and a really, really, really cute design. And again, this was a collaboration with Lindsay Ostrom, who does the black and white art of the angels and the motifs. And then Julie designs the quilts, and then our friends at Adorn It print the amazing dissolvable sticker for you and make the cute little booklet that goes in as well with all of your highlighted stitch tips and good stuff like that. So a really fun collaboration and a really fun quilt for you to make. Happy stitching!